Hello, a very good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Candy Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. Such a pleasure to have you on board. My good name is Evans Okinyi, and remember, I'm always here to bring you up to date with comprehensive analysis of everything that is taking place in the country and of course across our borders as well. Welcome to the show. In case you're watching us for the first time, kindly subscribe to this channel and of course stay tuned. We're always here with very great analysis and great guests here. This fine morning, I'm joined by one of our own here. Of course, he's been a guest here before, Wakili Willis Otieno. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome once again to this family and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A constitutional crisis is looming here. We've got the reconstitution of IEBC, which should be taking place right now because a number of things which are supposed to be done are still pending. Of course, this has been brought about by the kind of standoff that was there between the government and the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition regarding the reconstitution of the constitution, and we find ourselves in such a mess. High Court Judge Mugure Thande has actually ordered the immediate beginning of that process because we are finding ourselves in such kind of a mess. What do you make of where we find ourselves right now with regards to all this taking place in the country?
The most important thing, this speaks to the question of commitment and adherence to the rule of law.
Okay.
And it is important that we need to have a properly constituted electoral boundaries commission in place. But when you're dealing with a fractured society like Kenya, and more so you're dealing with a body that is beset with serious integrity issues. Remember, three commissioners of IEBC have previously been forced through political pressure to resign. That is what caused the vacancies. Otherwise, there will not be vacancy. And you saw Kenya Kwanza moving at high speed to attempt to reconstitute the commission. Of course, the commission is the referee in any election contest. And it's important that for it to be constituted, the process must be one that aspire and inspire the confidence of Kenyans in the commission and its processes. Once you start on the premise of a commission that lacks public acceptability and confidence, now it is constituted, that becomes a recipe for chaos. And we did witness it in 2007 when President Kibaki and members of his coalition decided unilaterally appoint some commissioners of the ECK, saying that was what the law provided. The outcome of that partly was what you witnessed in the 2007-2008 post-election violence and crisis. So, and since 97, you'll find that every election management body that we've had has been the product of a negotiated settlement between competing political interests, save for the 2007 commission, where majority of the members were unilaterally appointed by the then president in ignoring the IPPG deal that had been signed between the parliamentary political parties. So also with this particular commission, William Ruto has two choices. He can decide to set up his own commission and enroll himself to determine who becomes a commission. And as I say, there have been consequences. There have been attempts before to do that. And there have been consequences to it. So let him, if he decides to railroad, let him do it, but be ready to deal with its consequences. Everybody must deal with their consequences.
Okay.
Option 2, have a genuine conversation with the political players to come up with a formula that will lead us to an IEBC within the shortest time possible. A commission that represents and aspires to what I call the confidence of the voting population. Anything short of that, then 2007, 2008 may be child's play. Because the more we are getting, as years go by, we are becoming more and more divided.
Okay.
And the society is getting more fractious. So it is very important that the referee, the manner in which it's being arrived at, should be one that respects and aspires to the confidence of the people.
Okay. Wakili, we've got a dysfunctional electoral body right now, definitely. Without commissioners, then it cannot carry out its mandate as it should be. But then you're here saying that the problem was caused by the Kenya Kwanza government when they decided to put some sort of pressure on the four battled IEBC commissioners to resign. But then a section of the people would also say that all this is to be blamed on the dialogue that was called for by the opposition, definitely, when they decided to go on the streets at that particular moment. So where do you draw the line? Where do you say that this problem actually came from? Is it because of the opposition, those in the opposition side who decided to oppose the kind of recruitment that was there? Because had it been done the way, because immediately after,
why the recruitment? Why the recruitment?
The recruitment was there because people resigned. Because people resigned.
Why did they resign? They were forced to resign. That's what I'm saying. We are in this situation because Kenya Kwanza forced those other commissioners to resign. Period.
So the dialogue has nothing to do with this.
The commissioners resigned before the dialogue. I mean, it is black and white. They forced those commissioners to resign even before Chebukati's time in office came to an end.
But
so the problem did not start with the dialogue. The problem started with Kenya Kwanza playing politics on those commissioners who had stood up to give their truth.
Okay, after their resignation.
So that is where that's where the rain started beating us. So you cannot say that forget about how the vacancy arose and focus on the demonstrations. Those demonstrations were conducted in accordance with our constitution. Our constitution gives every Kenyan the right to peacefully, unarmed, to demonstrate. So Kenyans were demonstrating for whatever issue. And somebody can demonstrate on anything. I can even go to demonstrate that I don't like your face. And that is my constitutional right, as long as I don't harm you in the process. So it's a right to demonstrate. So if Kenyans were demonstrating on the issue that led to the Mandamano, it was their constitutional right. What we are saying, that Kenya Kwanza could not force the commissioners to resign and then start to railroad a process that they're in full control of to select exclusively the referee. But as I've said, nothing stops them from doing it, by the way. They can still go ahead and do it. Let Ruto set up his own IEBC. But we've seen previously attempts to do that, and now it has ended. So if he wants to do it, he can as well go ahead and do it.
But even after the resignation of these four IEBC members, there was definitely a vacuum, and that process of reconstituting that particular body actually began in earnest, just as per the law. And then why would you again blame the president? Because I'm trying to look at it in such a manner that had he been allowed to proceed and go ahead and let that body
why did he force he force the commissioners to resign is the problem. Because that is where the rain started beating us. He is to be blamed because he's the one who forced those commissioners to resign, and they even dragged the poor lady from Marakwet through a tribunal. So that is where the rain started beating us. He's the one who caused it. If they did not interfere, we will not be saying it. Assuming they were filling the Chebukati vacancies, Chebukati and his two acolytes. If they are filling those vacancies that arose as a result of a friction of time, we will not make a mess out of it. But in this particular instance, they caused the vacancies themselves. But as I've said, nothing stops them. If he wants to, he can appoint whoever he wants to become IEBC chairman. It has been done before. But there are consequences. Just be ready to live with its consequences. So he can. No one has stopped him. No one has stopped him by there. There is no court order stopping him from concluding it. But I've just said he can continue, but be ready to deal with its consequences. If that is the kind of election that they want Kenyans to participate in.
But look at it this way, Wakili, we are in a constitutional crisis right now because of the political differences that were between the government and the opposition leaders therein. How then should we draw between executing the constitutional mandate of the president and tending to the political differences? Where do we draw the line?
No, that's why I've said no one has stopped William Ruto from appointing anybody so desires to IEBC. He can even appoint Kipchumba Murkomen, David, his brother, even appoint Rigathi Gachagua to the IEBC. Nothing stops him, by the way. They can do it even now. But I'm simply saying, there are consequences to everything. If you are not alive to the fractious nature of your society, and you think you can do certain things unilaterally, remember the other side will also respond.
Okay.
And you don't know what that response will be. And you don't know what consequences that will lead to. So if he wants to appoint, no one has stopped him. But if you are a wise leader, you take your society and your country as you find it. You are leading a very fractious society. That politics is a very emotive issue. You don't want to start a process that is exclusive or one-sided in setting up the referee. You want an all-inclusive process that leads you to a referee that inspires confidence in the electoral process, not one that fosters division. That is why it's important that you talk and you have a genuine political conversation to come up with a referee. But if the other side is not interested in those kind of talks, it's okay, by the way. They can go ahead.
I'm now looking at the kind of crisis that we're finding ourselves into as a country. We've got the limitation of boundaries that should be taking place that has not even been done. How many? We are already in the 12th year since the last ones were built. How do we manage? How
the
do we
bigger
get
constitutional,
ourselves out of
the
this
bigger constitutional crisis. I don't know why you are more interested in the making it sound like if you don't attend to the political issues, there are bigger constitutional crises. The biggest constitutional crisis that we have today is Article 43 is not being implemented. Kenyans are sleeping hungry, right? Kenyans cannot get quality health care in the hospitals. Majority of Kenyans are now unemployed. Our quality of life is deteriorating by the day. That, to me, is the biggest constitutional crisis facing this nation today. An aberration of Article 43, the socio-economic rights of our people. So we should not also allow politicians to make their issues to be more important than Mwananchi issues. That now we're in a crisis because there's no IEBC, or that because boundaries have not been delineated. No. That should not distract us. The biggest constitutional crisis is the crisis of the violations of Article 43. Cost of living, quality of life, healthcare, quality healthcare services, unemployment. Those are the greatest constitutional crises we are dealing with. This other one is also a constitutional crisis. I'm not saying it's not. It is. But don't give it the most prominent position. Give Article 43 violation to be the greatest constitutional crisis that we are facing. We've not had IEBC now for almost 1 year. Right? Has anybody died because there was no IEBC? But we've not had. We've had Kenyans die of poor health care. People have lost lives because of the rising cost of living. People are losing lives because of the spiraling debt. Roads are collapsing. Bridges were collapsing here when we just had that small rain. That's the biggest constitutional crisis. And that is the failure of Kenya Kwanza. We must make it the prime point that it is. Our constitutional crisis begins in Article 43, but continues in those other institutions, the political institutions we're talking about.
Setting of course, there's that conversation about the Article 43 that you're talking about here, but then here I'm also wondering, because I want us to make our viewers understand the kind of crisis that we've found ourselves in as much as you've said that it's the government that drove us here where we are right now. But now, the kind of, just talk to me, what does the law say about the limitation of boundaries and all that?
The limitation of boundaries is supposed to take place every 12th year. And the last boundary limitation that took place was in I think it was 2012, just after the new constitution and before the elections of 2013. So we are supposed to be redrawing our boundaries. One issue that we must point out is what we call gerrymandering. There are certain constituencies that if you look at the population size, they don't deserve to be constituencies. So you go and pick, for example, a Lagos-Songa constituency that has over 130,000 registered voters. Then you pick Mogosho constituency that has 30,000 registered voters, I think 40-something thousand. The demographics are all the same. They are all rural. They are all what you can term as peri-urban, rural peri-urban constituencies. But now it takes 130,000 people in Alego to elect one member of parliament. It takes 48,000 people in Mogosho to elect one person to parliament.
Okay.
So it means the vote cast in Mogosho is stronger than the vote being cast in Alego. Because it takes 3 times the people of Alego to elect one person compared to Mogosho. A third of the people of Mogosho take one person to parliament. 3 times the people of Alego take one person to parliament. Now that is what is called gerrymandering. And more gerrymandered with our constituencies. When we did our constitution of 2010, all existing constituencies were protected. But this coming review, we are supposed to look at the country as a whole and compare constituencies per constituency based on their demographics. The ones which are arid and semi-arid, there is a formula to be used to identify what qualifies a constituency. The ones which are urban, there's a formula that is used for urban constituencies. So the end result of this process will be this. Some constituencies will have to disappear. There are constituencies which will be lost. And there will be new constituencies which will be created. Based on settlement patterns and the populations of the people in those areas. Because what we aim to achieve through a boundary delimitation and review is what we call equality of the vote. The vote that you are casting in Mogosho should not be of heavier weight than a vote that is being cast, for example, in Rongai or Alego. They should be of equal weight, and even if there is disparity, is what we call within the permissible radius. Today, there are certain constituencies that the disparity is beyond the permissible radius. And now that is what is called an illegality that a boundary review is going to address. But of course, politically, there are some quarters who will not be comfortable with the review of boundaries. Because I've told you, some constituencies are going to be lost. They will not continue to exist as constituencies that we know today. And there are some areas which are going to gain. And the gainers will be the Central Kenya region, some constituencies will be gained. Nyanza region, some constituencies will be gained. Ukambani will gain some. Western will gain marginally. Kisii will also gain marginally. The number one losers will be Northeastern, parts of Rift Valley, Upper Eastern, parts of Coast, based on population.
Okay.
Now, that will be a political process, but it's a kind of a conversation that we will at some point must have in this country. If your votes are not equal, then you're acting in violation of the Article 81 of the Constitution principle on equality of the vote. Every vote cast in an election needs to be equal. That is what a review of boundary is supposed to achieve.
Okay. Now it's supposed to be taking place before the end of March, based on the kind of calculations that we've had. Now, what are we actually facing now that you've told me very well that that boundary review and delimitation should be taking place? But here we are, 12 years have elapsed. The maximum.
They've just lapsed. So the time we'll have an IEBC, that will be one of their first order of priority business to perform, to review the boundaries.
How legal will they be?
It will still be the fact that it was said the minimum. The first review will be 12th year after the constitution. So immediately they come in, that's part of their business. The fact that it has passed does not mean that the review will never be done. No. The review can still be done. It will still be legal. Because it is a requirement in the Constitution.
How? Make me understand, why are those timelines given? Because here we are talking about the Constitution saying that after 10 years, then it also gives that allowance of 2 additional years therein. So after the elapse of these 2 additional years, of course, we are here in the 12th year, something that should have been taken place perhaps in 2022, is now supposed to be done right now, and we are actually running out of time.
So you are in violation.
Are you saying that we are in violation of?
I'm saying you'll be in violation of the Constitution.
Okay.
And once you're in violation, what do? You cure.
So how do you cure?
So you cure by doing what the Constitution and the directed you to do. Because that doesn't mean that because you violated the Constitution, that's the end of it. That now going forward, it will be forever violation. No. So you cure it. So the first order of business of the commission is to conduct that review, in my view. And they'll be saying, we recognize that the review has not taken place within the timeline set out by the Constitution. We are in violation of the Constitution. Now we want to live by the dictates of the Constitution. So our first order of business, our first priority is a review of boundaries.
Okay.
That review will not be illegal because remember, the violation will still be continuous. So at the point of intervention is when you stop the violation. Okay?
Well, let us wait and see. But somebody was actually asking, now, are these new constituencies that may be created outside the provision of the Constitution, there, out of the timelines that is given by the Constitution?
They are still legal. As I've told you, the review must take place.
Okay.
And once there's a violation, the violation continues until it is stopped. And you only stop it by doing that which the Constitution has dictated needs to be done.
Okay.
So those constituencies will be legal.
So far, so good. Based on the timelines, you don't see us meeting the March.
Of course, we are not going to meet. The review of boundaries is not something that will be done within even a day. Something that will take almost a year.
Okay.
Yeah, to conclude. Yeah, because you have to go across the entire country. Talk to people. You have to visit all those wards. Talk to people. Look at people must get public participation. So it's not something that can be done within a month or two. No. It will take a minimum of 1 year to conclude the review of boundaries. But Chebukati was incompetent. He could not start that process when he was still in office.
The judge has spoken. That party, that commission necessary for the constitution of this body should be actually be working right now. The recommendations by the National Dialogue Committee are yet to be implemented. So what's the way forward?
The way forward is let the law take its course. Even if heavens fall.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's wait and see what will actually prevail and what will actually work in this country now that we've found ourselves in this kind of constitutional crisis here in Olakuna, so to say. Kindly weigh in on this conversation and tell us what it is that you feel about the kind of situation that we're finding ourselves in our country.